Welcome to Three Beers, One Cup. As always, your host, Macho. And over there, I have Pinky with me. Say hello, Pinky.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back.
All right, so we're going to tackle just a small portion of the World Economic Forum and who they are. Uh, we're probably not going to get super deep into it just simply because it's very complex. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's a very large organization that has a lot of agenda items. And it's not really you can't really sum it up in just an hour-long podcast, even. So, this is definitely something we're going to touch back on multiple times throughout different podcasts. Anyways, Macho, I think you had some uh, more context to add to this.
Yeah, definitely. I want to read a portion here from the World Economic Forum's actual website. It's listed under our partners, and it kind of describes who they are and what their purpose is. We also have the Davos Manifesto, which we're going to be reading later on, or at least a little portion of it. But to start off, so it's a here's a brief description directly from them. The World Economic Forum provides a platform for the world's 1,000 leading companies to shape a better future. As a membership organization, the forum engages businesses in projects and initiatives online and offline to address industry, regional, and systemic issues. Members and partners benefit from tailored engagement based on their company strategy. The deeper company's engagement, the greater is its ability to shape the forum agenda. So that's a brief overview of what they are. So it's essentially multiple members of different organizations or different companies that form this organization to shape the world towards a better future, right? That's
That's
kind of the
pretty much the
purpose.
mission statement. I think it's also worth noting that the people who do know of this, at least here in the United States, it's a very controversial topic because a lot of people have been talking about this is the globalists' agenda for implementing a one world government and whatever that entails.
I can kind of understand it, I guess, simply because it's your largest corporations in the world of the heads of industries getting together and trying to form one idea, right? Or build a world, you
So,
know?
on the actual website, so I've been looking at it, I've been dabbling in it, and I personally think they are addressing a lot of topics that need to be addressed, and some of their, I suppose, some of the things they're talking about, I definitely agree with. That we like, we do need it's in our best interest to tackle things like what artificial intelligence means for the workforce, climate change, things like that. But then there's also um, a bullet point in papers. They have some supporting documentation for world governance. So when people say like, well, they're not trying to be a one world order type thing,
That's literally what
the
they're
actual
admitting
the
to.
actual the actual website goes against that. But then again, I'm in the camp where I do not think they are intentionally trying to be nefarious.
I think corporations, since they have shareholders, they obviously try to make more money for their shareholders and become more powerful because that's how you make more money. And I think maybe they're not trying to be evil per se, but I think a lot of what they're doing, so a lot of things like greed come out of corporations, and that ends up hurting your smaller mom and pop shops or your average citizen, right? Especially when
But
they're
so
trying
it
to.
doesn't. That's another interesting thing. So a lot of the things we've seen from large corporations is just how greed corrupts a lot of individuals and has created horrible working conditions for a lot of people. Now some companies, so that doesn't that's not like that doesn't have to be the rule though. Like there is good
It's
companies
not the rule,
turning
but
a profit that actually they do source the materials ethically, they do treat their employees correctly, and they still turn a profit.
But I think the problem also lies in these corporations, regardless of whether they're acting on good faith or not. The fact that corporations have a lot of power and political, the ability to influence politics, like substantially, I think that's a major issue.
It is a major issue, and it's been a major issue since governments first formed for people. So
And I mean, I don't think getting a bunch of these corporations together and having them all try to work towards one idea, um, I don't think that benefits us. Your average folk. I think that obviously, it benefits them. I mean, we've seen some of their bullet points and what their intent is. Some of the things that obviously I would agree with, but it just it seems like there's too much power concentrated, right? And that is kind of a scary idea for me.
I think we kind of jumped the gun here a little bit too fast. The World Economic Forum, the founder of it is a professor by the name of Klaus Schwab, from I believe Switzerland. Um,
I thought he was
and
German.
in
Oh, I get that wrong. Sorry about that.
It's Swiss German, tomato potato, same difference.
Yeah, they're all down there,
That's a yeah, probably make some people mad if they hear that. Oh well. So in 1973, he made the Davos Manifesto, for a better kind of capitalism.
right?
And I think so. It's really short. It's only four, five, six. It's only 6 paragraphs long. Really short. And I think in topic Bravo on the third and fourth points are very interesting. So third point, it's talking about how management is being the corporations and the CEOs and the people who have a lot of power, needs to serve its employees because in a free society, leadership must integrate the interest of those who are led. And so that's going towards like employee welfare and consumer welfare in particular, which I think is a worthwhile goal. And I think some of the more successful companies, you'll see that if they treat their employees right and they also treat the consumers good, they're successful.
I don't.
But then the fourth point
I s-
in
so just before we get off that point there,
oh right,
I just have an issue with some of the terminology. I guess serve. It just it rubs me the wrong way. I guess.
there's a lot of nuances in this, yes.
Yeah. That.
And I think number four, kind of point, it definitely, so I'm going to read number four
Go for it.
verbatim. So I'm going to start the quote now. The management has to serve society. It must assume the role of a trustee of the material universe for future generations. It has to use the immaterial and material resources at its disposal in an optimal way. It has to continuously expand the frontiers of knowledge and management and technology. It has to guarantee that its enterprise pays appropriate taxes to the community in order to allow the community to fulfill its objectives. The management also has to make its own knowledge and experience available to the community. So this end quote. Um,
Yeah. There's a lot of ways to break that apart.
this
though.
has this has a lot of nuance to it. This has a lot of things you can take in really different ways. But like, I think the very first sentence, the management has to serve society, and that I mean,
You should never be forced to do anything. In my
well, the
opinion.
management,
So,
the management in this case, according to the World Economic Forum, from since its inception in 1973 till today in 2020, soon
yeah.
to be 2021, the management is a collaborative effort of 1,000 leading industries, and society is in this context now is the world.
Yep.
And it's saying that trustee of the material universe. So
I just
they're
think
saying they're asserting themselves as the basically sole, I'd say, shepherds of like, they want to say they own like all everything that humanity touches, whether like for now it's on Earth, but if we have like a moon base or like
You're talking
Mars, like
about authoritarianism
um,
to a certain point.
it depends on your definition of
It's a
authoritarianism.
corporatocracy, in my opinion. It's what
It
they're
a
aiming
hundred
for,
percent is a corporatocracy.
and like any kind of authoritarianism or plutocracy, period, I am firmly against. Um, but
Which this
in general, therefore, I just have a problem with the way that's written, right? Like, it just, regardless of what you are, who you are, whatever entity you are, you shouldn't be forced into doing anything, right? Like, at
well,
least in my opinion.
so I, I can definitely see why this is very controversial and why a lot of people don't like it. They're like, oh wow, like dude, I don't want to be like listen to what a bunch of corporations say. But I mean, in today's society, we already by and large do that. In fact, some of us beg for it and not even know that we're doing it. Like getting the latest cell phone, updating your Facebook posts.
Yeah,
Like,
being up
and
to
when
date on
you
social media constantly,
and when you agree to those terms and conditions, when you read the fine print, they are harvesting your data and they're putting it into like their big data platform and they're utilizing this information. They're selling it to their affiliates, and so like you're already being tracked. Like even us doing this podcast, when we agreed
I mean,
to
we're all a
make
product at
these,
this point, but
right, we're all a product. So I mean, and the only thing like all it seems like all they're talking about is that it seems like their biggest gripe is that the individual governments just makes it more difficult for them to,
so
I guess, have control.
I
But
think
somebody already
one of
has
the,
control. They just want to change it, which
I mean, they want to set up their own regulations to whatever they
right.
see fit. And so here's I guess, one of my biggest issues with the World Economic Forum. Everything that you read, for the most part, is very generalized, right? So you can read it in a bad way, depending on what your mentality is, or you can read it in a good way. Everything we're
Right.
reading right now, it can be a good thing. They could be meaning it in a good way, but depending on what your perception is, it's
So
just going to change the definition.
if you make an account on the World Economic Forum and then you go to their strategic intelligence, they have a lot of points, and some of the big ones I think you want to talk about is the Fourth Industrial Revolution, or at least that's what they're calling it, and the Great Reset.
Hmm.
And they are, I guess, essentially the Great Reset is this organization says that capitalism needs to be reinvented. That it worked for so long, but now since everything's changing because of technology and the world is just advancing rapidly,
Mm-hmm.
that it needs to adapt to the new world, which
So
is the Internet of Things.
I know I take
And
it in a,
I think that's real.
I'm taking it
That's
in
a
a
real valid
very
concern.
pessimistic manner. I always do, especially when it comes to large organizations like this that involve obviously multi-billion dollar
I'm
corporations. But
I mean, and
I
you're
look
not
at it.
wrong for saying that because, like they say, the highway to hell is paved with good intentions.
I mean, it almost, especially with them, they make it seem obvious, right? In my opinion, um, when we read that next sentence up ahead, right? We see it has to use the immaterial and material resources at its disposal in an optimal way. I can be like, oh, they mean they want to make everything efficient, but at the same time, I read they want to tell me how to do things, right?
So, I mean, but like, I see where that could be bad, but I mean, isn't that how it is already? Like, if you want to have a business, OSHA's gonna tell you that you can't like have your employees replace light bulb fixtures like using like a
Yeah, but
wobbly
so we
stool.
have to differentiate between efficiency, or not even, you know, differentiate, but we have to realize that there's a difference between efficiency and like ethics, right? Because there's certain things that like are being currently done in China that are extremely unethical, but they work
I think everyone. Oh, right, yeah.
and they're
But I.
efficient, but they're
Mhm.
extremely unethical and inhumane. And that's something that I don't see a part there where it says like yeah there's like oh serve its employees, but I need further description of like what does it mean to serve your employees? Does that mean to keep them employed, or does that mean actually caring for your employees?
I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt, and I think it's gonna be caring for their employees, sort of like what Costco does, where their employees make a pretty, I
Their,
mean,
yeah,
like
their
for
employees
their
are pretty
work
well.
in like that industry, their employees are doing way better than like your Walmart line employees. Um, and Costco also for the consumers, they're cheap food court items, so like they get people in the door by offering these loss leaders, is what they call them, and for $1.50, you can get a hot dog with some toppings on it, and you're just like, wow, man, this is what a deal. But you just spent like $600 on like a pallet of milk, which you didn't need, but you got there, and you're like, well, a pallet of milk, like maybe, oh, like $2 of
It's
macaroni and
whatever
cheese, like,
drives
yep,
everyone in. I
right,
mean,
exactly. So and so although the hot dog is not profitable, but it actually is profitable, and it's not profitable in like monetary sense, but it's profitable in a consumer sense because it gets a population inside of their facilities, and
so
then that's where they are successful.
their number one product actually that drives people in apparently is actually the chicken.
I mean, their
They're
rotisserie chicken's really good, and
yeah,
it's like five
it's a great
dollars.
deal. Yeah, and it hasn't really changed, and that's actually one of the main drivers of people. And obviously, when you're in there, you're like, oh well, I'll just pick up something else, and I'll pick up this and that and that, and then you end up with a full cart, and
hundred
they
percent, I'm
made up all
guilty of
that
that.
money.
Hmm. Yeah, 100%. I mean, anecdotal evidence. I'm 100% guilty of it. I've gone in there just to be like, oh, I'm just gonna grab like some rotisserie chicken to like meal prep and throw that in with some rice, and that'll be like my meal for the next few days. And then like I get the rotisserie chicken. I'm like, oh wow, like that salmon's on like sale, and like whoa, like a whole bushel of avocados and like a gallon of like olive oil. Like yeah.
Yeah,
And then I go to checkout and it's like, well, that'll be $230, and it's like, oh man, that is, I came in here wanting to spend $10 and I'm
ended up.
$190 over budget. Then it's like whatever. Like I need these things, I'll use them, and it's
I
just
mean,
funny how
that's
that
just
works.
regular business, I guess. But I don't know. I guess I kind of view companies, I guess, with a sense of malice, especially right now
I
during
mean,
the
definitely.
current issues, simply because I think they've been actively trying to destroy your small businesses, and I mean, they've been successful at it clearly,
Well, I mean,
throughout this,
Amazon makes
especially
it
throughout the
so.
South.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon, especially
Oh,
Amazon. That's a big one. That's like an entirely different podcast,
oh
but
yeah. I
they
mean, I'm
are
guilty of it.
definitely.
I mean, how do you beat? I mean, Walmart's trying to compete currently. They recently, what they do? They dropped the minimum for like their deliveries, like just in an attempt to to compete against Amazon. But
But
these
they can't
corporations are
compete
so powerful.
because Amazon doesn't. They don't even use the same logistics Walmart uses. They have their own delivery service now, and they started their own pharmacy. Like
Well, they're a monopoly
they're
on
literally
multiple different
rewriting
ways.
the game, and so it's very very difficult for the like small businesses to compete. I mean, especially because there's lobbyists for these large corporations, like especially the telecommunication industry for internet. I know Ajit Pai, that was very controversial because he was put in as the head of the FCC, and he
Yep.
was a Comcast executive, and he's just like, oh yeah, net neutrality, like that's totally good, like we don't need it, and so which that just goes to show like these a lot of these companies, they do not have your like it's good to be what's the word I'm looking for, hesitant to think these people are going to have your best interest at heart, because I mean,
I
from
mean,
what
you should
has
be a
been proven,
pessimist
they
when you're looking at
don't.
large corporations because you
Right,
know their purpose.
yeah, the purpose is you are a product, you are a consumer, and their purpose is for their numbers to go up no matter what, and their shareholders like buy more. I mean, it gets into some weird stuff. This is getting into some weird stuff, but
Yeah. Well, so
basically the
I kind
summary
of
of
want to
it
bring it
is
back here a little bit. I know we kind of ran it off into a slightly different topic on how the ethics and morality of how companies actually function,
but it's
but
hard not to, because the
yeah,
World Economic Forum is comprised of these entities.
absolutely. But I think there's a line here in bullet point number 4 here. By the way, this is obviously the Davos Manifesto from 1973. They do have a new one. We should probably go over that some other time. But it says here, it has to guarantee that its enterprise pays appropriate taxes to the community in order to allow the community to fulfill its objective.
Right. That sounds. I mean, on the top of it, like the frosting, it like looks pretty good. It's like, oh yeah,
Mm,
pay your fair share. But then it's like at the end, what was the nuances behind that? Like, what do they mean? Like, fulfill their objective?
yeah.
Like, are we going to be plugged into the
If you're
Matrix?
if
I
you're
mean, I personally don't think so.
if you're a
But
poor community, what's going to be your objective? Having food on your table.
don't
So
die.
is that what
Yeah,
you're gonna?
right. Don't
Is that
die.
what you're gonna promise? We're always gonna have food on your table. You have to look deeper into what these companies are actually
So,
saying.
so this is actually so a little history lesson here. Not much of a history lesson, but in like the 1910s, 1920s United States, the coal, like the big giant like coal corporations, they were king. And I don't know if you know, have you heard about coal towns?
I have.
Okay, so there was like so towns, especially like West Virginia and places like they still exist. Well, not in the same capacity, but the town physically actually exists because it was a coal town originally. Um, the U.S. government made this illegal, by the way. But what they used to do is, instead of paying people like United States currency, they were paying them in like the company's money. And I remember when I was younger, I can go into pawn shops and stuff, and there was like wooden like tokens, and it was from like these coal towns, and so they'd pay their people in like the company money, but like they could only spend it
At the
at the
company.
company shop. Now, do you see the problem with that?
Well,
Because if
yeah,
you
of course.
let like so now you're getting paid technically, and the coins have value technically, but you like to transfer that into United States currency, they would make it very difficult. They'd even coerce you with like thugs. Basically, they would
Rough you up a little bit.
yeah. Um, and if you wanted to leave the coal town, all you would have is this useless money that's not accepted anywhere besides this coal town. And they'd put you into like their own housing and everything. And so you just were owned by this coal company, and
I mean,
you just worked in the mines.
it's a basically indentured servitude
It's
or
100%
slavery.
indentured servitude. It's almost slavery, because the people technically could leave, but they would have to leave with nothing. But they had their own volition to leave.
So I guess
But
indentured servitude to a point, but yeah, I mean that's pretty getting
right.
pretty close to slavery.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And
I mean,
that's kind of what some of the things I'm reading between the lines of like this manifesto and the World Economic Forum just kind of points towards a coal town, but on a global scale.
yeah, definitely. I could definitely see what you mean by that. I mean, obviously, some of the videos that they put out recently were talking about how you're essentially renting everything from them, which is exactly what you just talked about. So,
And yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I remember one of the videos they put out, and they took it down, but because it really rubbed a lot of people wrong, because it
oh yeah,
said the main thing, it says like you will own nothing and you will be happy.
yep.
And so this is just kind of conjecture here, and this is just my own personal take on it. And this is not, I haven't seen anything on the World Economic Forum to support these claims, but personally, how I see them implementing that is that everybody moves into a subscription based life. So you would buy, for example, like package A or package B, and you would be allowed to work at so many different companies and do so many different jobs. You would be able to buy so many different things of clothes. You could live in certain apartments, and that's like your subscription. So you would just like click a bunch of buttons on your computer,
I
and then
mean,
like a moving truck could come in, and then you would just get moved to a different place,
it just sounds
and
like
like your
a
food and everything. It'd be
slightly
part of a
different.
subscription package.
It sounds like a slightly different form of a. So I know it's a little bit different, obviously, but social credit system, to where there's certain things you can do, certain things you cannot do, because of how you act.
I mean, I 100% think that would bleed into it. If you talked bad about the company, they'd be like, "Oh, well, since you said this bad thing back in like 2016, you are not eligible for like the C package, which gives you like better cars or like better transportation or
Yeah,
things like that."
I mean,
Since
it gives it gives not the government, it gives corporations so
I
much
mean,
power over you. It's pretty insane.
I'd say in this context for this podcast, saying the government is just kind of alluding to the fact that it would just be a conglomeration of the leading industries of the world.
I mean, that's that's literally what what they're trying to build. So, I mean, obviously with the new administration coming in, which will more than likely be Biden's, of course. There's a I have a quote here by John Kerry. It says, "And yes, it regarding the Great Reset will happen." Kerry continued, "And I think it will happen with greater speed and with greater intensity than a lot of people might imagine. In effect, the citizens of the United States have just done a great reset. We've done a great reset, and it was a record level of voting." Now, John Kerry is going to be the envoy for climate, whatever that means,
I
whatever that
think it's a
entails.
meaningless position.
Yeah,
If
it's not going to
he,
have a whole
yeah,
lot of power.
he's not in the EPA or anything. So
Uh, I'll have to double check, but I can almost be positive that John Kerry will be part of the WF. I'm almost positive of that. I'm gonna have to double check that, but no, having every single or not every single, but a lot of different administrations throughout the world. So when we talk about Canada, like Justin Trudeau, there are certain slogans, right, that they push. Well, in particular, Trudeau, I believe it was about 2 weeks ago, started pushing the "Build Back Better" slogan.
mm-hmm.
The WF has pushed the "Build Back Better" for a while now, since I want to say at least 4 or 5 years now. Um, President or the candidate Biden, because technically he's not president elect, that's his whole slogan, right? "Build Back Better."
Mm-hmm.
And them all having the same slogan I don't think is a coincidence. I think there's unfortunately, I think that there's a lot of connections there that we're failing to see.
So why is it
In
unfortunate? Because I mean, I think we do need to be to build back better, and I think they are right that there needs to
Yeah, but
be
what
a
does that
great
actually
reset
mean?
because the entire
Is it at the cost of my freedom? Is what I want to ask.
and most
It's
likely,
always at the
yeah.
cost of my freedom, and if it means being at the cost of my freedom, I don't want it. Get it the hell away from me.
But
Simple
I
as that.
mean, we've already. I mean, after 2001, I mean, everyone. Well, no, I want to say I'm using this a pretty broad generalization.
You're talking about the Patriot Act and stuff like that.
Yes, the Patriot Act, like everyone just full heartedly just went through there.
I mean, I
Besides a few
definitely agree with
outspoken
that.
individuals.
Oh, well, I don't agree. I'm sorry. That sounded wrong. I don't agree with the Patriot Act, of course, but
But
I
you agree that
agree that,
people, yeah.
yeah. Um, but I
I,
think that people have kind of given up their liberties for security, and I think that's a absolutely wrong way to think about it, especially within the U.S. That's kind of been that's our motto, right? Liberty over anything. right?
And our country's definitely strayed away from that terribly.
Unfortunately, yes. And I think that has a lot to do with schools, which we'll get into some other time. But it's just
I wouldn't say
it's
it's
a hard
schools.
path.
I'd say it's. I mean, I'm gonna say it's corporations.
Well,
I mean,
schools, corporations,
Eisenhower,
it's all money
he
that's going
he
through.
did talk about the military-industrial complex, and that's like the biggest threat to democracy. And plot twist, you know, he was right.
I mean, yeah. I mean, even by what is it? President Trump actually spoke about the military industrial complex as well. Actually, which a lot of people apparently haven't seen that interview for some odd reason, where he actually
Well,
talks about
I
him.
mean, it doesn't really matter though, even if he talks about him because he did increase, DoD spending and funding.
So I think there's a very big difference between the people who want to actively go out there and create new, combat theaters, and people who want to just research and develop. I think there's a very we have to differentiate them because they're different people, right?
No, I
Obviously, you're.
think they're the same.
I think they
I mean,
go. They're very
Raytheon,
similar, but I don't
Northrop
think they're
Grumman.
exactly the same because one is
Mm.
one you're taking a more defensive stance, and the other one is taking a very offensive stance.
And I do think we're getting um, in this new information field, we're going away from boots on the ground wars, and we're going more into like cyber wars, which means a lot more spending on your IT professionals and people just maintaining facilities for internet infrastructure and energy infrastructure. I think that's going to become a
Backup
lot more
facilities and
important.
everything that
And that's
entails.
going to be a lot more important in like the years to come, and we're going to see a lot less boots on the ground intervention, and the military industrial complex is changing in accordance with that. Um,
I
and
mean,
I'm sure they're
that
part of the
depends on
World
DARPA
Economic.
too, though.
Well, I'm sure like a lot of the people in the World Economic Forum, there's a lot of those companies in there, and the military industrial complex is working in this because back to what we're talking about, the World Economic Forum, uh, they are essentially pushing towards a one world government. And in one of their bullet points, well, one of their topics they want to address is agile government, and that they want, and within that, they want to address just the inefficiencies in the current governments and also how inefficient it is to do things between different countries because they have different laws, and they want to get over that, which
I mean, so that.
on the top, that seems like a good thing because it's efficient. But
Mhm.
when you go deeper into it, do you really want Taco Bell to dictate some aspect of your life? Do you want Walmart to dictate some aspect of your life?
I mean, I
I'm
think
gonna say
there's
no.
there's a lot of aspects that if you look at the World Economic Forum, they're attempting to dictate not just how you shop, how you think, how you act, right? But how you wage war in general, right? There's a or just how you live in general as well, right? Where your power source is. They want to dictate every facet of your life, and I obviously I think that's a great danger.
So you're saying dictate. I would rather use the term corralling. They want to corral you into your lane that they think you should be in.
I
You can
mean,
do whatever you want
one may be
in your
nicer, but the
lane,
outcome is the same.
but if
Their
you, yeah,
control.
if you get out of your lane, right.
I mean, how do they enforce, right? It's always going to be the same thing.
I would assume they would enforce it utilizing something close to China's credit
Lots of
system.
hugs. No, I thought it was hugs and kisses. Like that's like they kiss
Mm-hmm.
you and they hug you until you're like,
Yeah, and then you
oh,
get COVID, and then you
I
die.
want to be friends.
No.
No, yeah. Obviously, they're gonna take, they're gonna be like, oh, you don't want to abide? Here's some violence. You know, because that's how every government's done it. That's what China's doing. Obviously, like you were saying earlier, China. Ugh. man, the way they enforce literally everything. Don't follow the law? Okay, that's fine. Did you pay off the right people? No. Okay, so we're just
Harvest
gonna put you in a
organs
gulag or whatever their
or
form of it.
gulag,
Yeah,
either or.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I mean, there's just
There's a lot of factors
and
to what
there's a lot of
this
factors
organization
into it.
is.
And the thing is like if even if you don't agree with it, I mean, what is there to do
I mean,
against
we
the
I think
leading
we all know what there
industries
is to
of the
do.
world?
I mean, you can protest, and that's cute, but it has to be a major societal change. It has
It
to be a
has to
populist
be
movement,
it has to
in my
be a
opinion.
collective populist movement to resist that.
Oh my
That
god,
is if, but that's if
resist!
people. That is if people like think it's something worth resisting. Which I
And
mean, I mean,
most people aren't. I'm not gonna say I'm smart at all because I'm not, but I think most people just haven't taken the time to actually read over any of this because they have so much going on in life, especially with obviously this year has been the most hectic year, or at least in my life, and like I can't expect people to all go and read up on WEF and what they do and who they are and who they're trying to influence. I
well,
understand it.
I didn't know anything about them until you mentioned the Great Reset about 2 months ago, and then I kind of dabbled in it. I looked into it, and I saw their talk. I mean, a lot of the
I mean, they've been
points
around for
they want to
years,
address.
so
I mean, they've been around for like 50 years,
yeah.
70,
Well, at least the DeVos
80, 90,
Manifesto.
10. So they've been around for 40 years.
Yeah,
Just about 40 years. And I'm reading some of the stuff, and there's a lot of things I agree with, like that they wanted to address, because it's definitely something that like things that need to be addressed, like artificial intelligence in the workforce and how to keep people employed, and how to maintain people's quality of life. I agree with that, but then the whole world government aspect and you know what
it's
you said,
overregulation, in my opinion.
enforcing things, it's just like, if I want to go off grid and mess around with bees for like a year or two,
Or
I don't
wasps.
I hope I don't, yeah, or wasps. That's inside
Yeah,
joke.
sorry about that.
Yeah,
No,
my home defense wasps. Yeah, I wish I still had those paper wasps.
you
Anyways,
know,
that's a different podcast.
yeah.
But I don't think you should be penalized on that, and I also don't think you should be penalized on something you said 4 years ago. I don't think that should negatively impact your social credit score. Because
I mean,
I fully believe
in
in.
their ideology, it definitely would, though. And I think that people like this that are, you know, they're idealists, right? So they think, oh, well, it's gonna work this way. No one's gonna abuse it, whatever.
And it
That's if
never
I'm
works that
taking
way.
like, that's if I'm taking the view of, oh, these are good people. But if I'm taking the view of like, these are terrible people, like these are people who consistently break antitrust laws and consistently build monopolies when they know they shouldn't. That takes a whole different approach, right? On my end, like I have to actually actively go, wait a minute, these people have actually broken all these laws. They're talking all these nice things, but they've broken all these laws. So why would I trust them? Who are these people really?
Yeah, exactly. Like
They
they
have my
skirt environmental protections and they skirt worker protections. They do all the time, and now all of a sudden we're supposed to believe that like, oh, they're gonna be good.
yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, look at Amazon. How much do they care about their own employees? How
They
how well do they treat their employees? They don't. What they do is they overwork them, like from what I understand, to the point where they're urinating within like on bottles because they have to meet a quota, and
sounds
it's
like the
ridiculous.
military, but you shouldn't really be subjected
Well,
to
you know what?
military treatment
No,
in a
the military is.
corporation.
I will say this about the military. The military, yes, you do some really like crappy stuff, but everyone else has to go through it. And at the end of the day, you have the ability to complain. You do.
Right.
If it's
You can
unlawful,
request mass, and
yeah, yeah,
you can go
you
through
can
the
go through a
process,
process.
and there's some remediation in it.
If it's
You know
unlawful,
what, that was a very, that was a lazy simplification on my part. I apologize. Yeah, the
yeah.
military is much better, because at least in the military you're actually building a 401k. It's giving a bunch of people job skills, and
Well, it's not just that, but
a lot
if
of
you're
skills
act,
that can translate into the workforce.
if it like let's say an NCO or a staff NCO decides to break the law, you can report them, and it's not gonna adversely affect you that much. At least I mean,
Depends on your chain of command and how
well,
close the
yeah,
higher
of
ups
course,
are. So there
of course.
is there's a lot of cases where and a lot of military, not just the U.S. military, the Canadian military, the British military, the German military. Yeah, there's a
I
lot
mean,
of
military in
cases of
general.
that. But the fact of the matter is, something is better than nothing, and the military does have things in place, whereas a lot of corporations do not, and HR just gets rid of you.
Yep, because it's easier. It's always easier to
Yes.
get rid of you. The military
Mm-hmm.
can't get rid of you that fast. They're
Nope, it's
really
a
not that good
very
at and
a
effective
very
at
long
that, so they
process.
have to deal with you. Uh, but no, it really it kind of it builds a I guess kind of a little your little fort of ideologies, right? Of what these people are, and it lets you know, hey, this is what we stand for and everything. But the way I'm looking at it and the way I'm reading their words, I can't trust that, right? Obviously, I'm taking a pessimistic stance, and there's some things that obviously that I do agree on, but I can't trust
So
somebody who's willing to, I know is willing to break the law, and not just break the law, but actively circumvent it, like continuously, right?
hmm another thing I want to kind of touch on is, so it is posted on the website. The World Economic Forum is comprised of, over 1,000 leading industries and people. I am very skeptical that they are all on the same page on how to implement these things.
Well, so if we read this portion right here, where it says members and partners benefit from tailored engagement based on their company's strategy. The deeper a company's engagement, the greater is its ability to shape the forum agenda. So what that sounds like to me is the more money you throw at me, the more I'm going to push for your ideology and your influence within the forum.
And I mean, that's kind of how lobbyists work right now on
I mean,
Capitol
that's
Hill in
exactly what
America.
lobbyists are.
Yeah, exactly. So this is just that on a global scale.
Yeah, I mean, there.
So
There's
we're already living in it to a certain degree.
oh, absolutely. I mean, they
It just sounds like they want to streamline it and make things, from what I'm reading, a little bit easier for the consumer. Which I'm not against that, because a lot
I
of
don't
this
know if they
stuff
want to
is
make it
just,
easier for the consumer. I think it's
I
easier for them to control the consumer.
they're gonna
Is it
make
what they
it
want?
corralling, yeah,
Yeah.
but it'll make, on the surface, each individual's life easier.
I mean, I depends, I guess, on how everyone lives, but yeah,
Right, but then that, back to the point where it's just like, your life will be easier, and you can go through the metrics and stuff, and I'm gonna be willing to bet your life would be, like, on paper, better. But then again, you're also, like you said, you're gonna be losing a lot of freedoms. If you subscribe to a certain package, you're not gonna be able to, like, vacation in, like, the Cancuns or, like, Canada or whatever, because, like, your subscription package, like, won't allow it. It won't be part of it. You'll have to, like,
that's the thing.
buy
It's
into
it's
something
so
else.
hard to read into a lot of what they're saying because
It is very hard.
they don't give you detailed like plans about what they're attempting to do. A lot of the words they say can be obviously taken in different manners. Like I mean, I think I've shown that at this point, but
Do you mind if
it
I
can be
interrupt real
taken in a
fast?
very negative or a very positive manner, and I think that's dangerous. It's like writing a law, right? Obviously, these people don't set the laws for us, but they can influence them. But like setting a law, you want to be extremely specific because you don't want to make something a crime that it shouldn't be.
Well, there's very few laws that are actually made correctly, and I'm assuming pretty much every
Well, I
law
mean,
is
what is it? The Section 230, I believe it is. Um, the law governing or not law, but um, like governing internet and publishers and like what publishers actually are and what they aren't. Obviously, what a lot of companies actually abuse, like Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that, so they don't
yes.
actually get sued for whatever your statement is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you look at things like that, and you're just like, well, how it's obviously relatively poorly. I don't know if it's poorly written or if it's just poorly administered, because that's one thing we have to differentiate, I guess, as well. Um, but I mean, with 230, I think we just it's a lack of administration. But with something like this, like what the World Economic Forum is talking about, I think they're more. I guess I would say it's a little bit more based on how they're wording things, right? And I think that's their biggest issue. But then again, I don't know what their true intentions are, right? What do you think?
It's hard. It's hard to it's hard to gauge what their intentions are, and I think it's also difficult for them to gauge what their intentions are, considering they're comprised of a lot of different entities, and they all have different agendas.
Different motives and
Mm-hmm. Hey,
yeah,
I'm gonna go grab a beer to stay true with the three beers, 1 cup,
yep. Even
and
though,
I will.
yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be back
No problem,
momentarily.
brother. All right, folks. So obviously today we broke down the World Economic Forum a little bit. Well, I don't even know if the right word is to break down, but we mentioned some of the topics and everything, and we're really, really hoping to break it down a lot further. But it's such a deep and complex topic, because on their own website they have. I mean, it's basically a mind map, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically they put one bullet point and then they expand on it to multiple different bullet points, and it gets really, really complex. And to break down every single topic, it's going to take some time. We wanted to just introduce you as listeners to what the World Economic Forum was, so you're not misunderstanding it. And I do hope that we actually got that across, obviously, which is just it's essentially just what uh, 1,000 different leading companies, right? And their heads or different members that they send out there to represent them. And I hope that you understand what their goal is. Obviously, it can it can the goal can actually change depending on the company, but for the most part, it's all about increasing efficiency, right? In a sense, and obviously, as you heard earlier, we both have different opinions on it, but we're hoping to actually expand on what we're actually going to break down. Obviously, we're going to break down the DeVos Manifesto. They have a newer one that we're going to go ahead and break down later on. We're going to break down some of the partners and how they can actually influence a forum depending on how much money they make. So we're going to break down Facebook, Google, Pfizer, all these large industry leaders, right? We're going to go ahead and break them down a little bit and how they're influencing, as well as kind of what their main goals are, right? So that
I'm back, by
is
the
going
way.
to take some time. Oh, Jesus. Didn't hear you there. But no,
I
no,
stopped
I was
being.
just breaking down kind of what some of the future podcasts are going to be like, and kind of what, I think that we should break down the Davos Manifesto later on, the new one at least, as well as kind of who the partners of the World Economic Forum are, and obviously what their ideology is behind it. But it's just going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of episodes. It's gonna take a lot of work on our end, but hopefully we can bring you that information so that you can actually get something out of it and not just leave
Yeah,
empty handed, I guess.
and form like a little bit more a more educated opinion,
Yep.
and how you personally feel it means to you.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that we both have our own biases, but I hope that we don't. I mean, I guess we all kind of when you speak, you just kind of try to influence in general. But I
Mm-hmm.
hope that we don't. We just try. I really want to focus on us bringing you guys information so that you can be better informed, whether you agree with us or not. Hopefully, it sparks a sense of urgency in your research, right, into these different organizations and what these people can do and what they do, so that whether you agree with it or not, you can be like, hey, I know what they're talking about. I know what future they're actually trying to build. And that's what
And
I really hope.
guys, the for you people listening, please comment if we didn't say something correctly, if we didn't touch on something you think we should have touched on. Please make it like comment in the comment section if you're listening to a platform that allows you to comment. And let us
On
know, like,
YouTube, you
critique
definitely
us.
can. And I believe on, just
Can
to
you?
interrupt.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
No, I believe on Anchor they actually have like voice comments, which is new. So check that out. We're on a bunch of different platforms. Jesus, I believe we're on at least six different distribution sites. So we're talking about Anchor, we're talking about Breaker, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Google Cast, of course, and we're also on YouTube. We're gonna be getting on Rumble here soon. It's gonna take some time, and you can obviously we're gonna be on
Craigslist.
social media. Yeah, yeah, we're
No,
on Craigslist.
Craigslist.
We're on Connections if you don't know. Preferably for male for male. But no, but no. We are going to be on different platforms. We are on Parlor already. So if you want to follow us there, if you want to follow us on Twitter, we do have an Instagram. We're working on it. It's gonna take some time because I'm not photogenic, especially with the mustache nowadays. But
Mustache.
it is what it is. But go ahead and follow us, like, subscribe, whatnot.
Or
Um,
don't. I mean, you can
I
do whatever
mean,
you
that
want.
is your choice, but I would suggest you share us because I mean, I would do me, but I'm just saying. Um,
Nito Torpedo.
it is what it is. No, but I think if there's anything that you guys want us to actually break down for you, we can go ahead and break it down for you here. We will be talking about some topics like, some weird alien stuff in the future, some poltergeist, some ghost stuff.
Yeah,
So
definitely
hopefully,
ghosts.
yeah, we are definitely gonna hit ghost. I have some stories to tell. I don't know about you, Pinky, but
I
I
got a
played with the
couple.
Ouija board or two. So no, we do have some stories to tell for you guys, and if you guys obviously want to subscribe and go ahead and hear the next episode, which, hey, we might have some guests on and everything, which I think one of our future guests may or may not be a female talking about society and children. Just saying. But no, if you guys want to follow us, go ahead and follow us, subscribe. Let us know what you guys actually think, and hopefully we can come with us next time, right? So, Pinky, any last words?
No, that pretty much that kind of covers everything. Thanks to everyone who joined us and listened to everything. Hopefully you got something out of this. Again, really appreciate everyone who supports this podcast.
All right. Well, awesome. All right, folks. We'll see you next time. 3 beers, 1 cup. Always remember, stay frosty. All right.